In the years our next reader has been here, she won the Thomas Morton Prize for Literary Excellence out of Canada and was chosen as a fellow for the 2013 Sozopol Fiction Seminars in Sofia and Sozopol, Bulgaria. Her stories have been published locally in the 2013 Vegas Writes books and in Desert Companion. And two of her stories were translated to Greek and published in a literary magazine in Athens called Mandragoras. I hope I pronounced that right. On what she's learned here, she had this to say, and I'm going to quote her directly because she could say it way better than I could. The whole solitary writer thing is bullshit. We need community. We might go alone to our little offices, laundry rooms, cubbies, but we're carrying our ancestors, friends, family, lovers, ghosts, presidents, the whole world, the trees and the ocean and the cacti. I was lonely for the first time in my life here in the desert, and I was brought back to life by the kindness, sweetness, absolute loveliness of humans, you humans, who are so much bigger than any story or poem. I'm so happy to hear her read once more. Please welcome Aurora.
Hello. Hi. I'm going to read two short pieces, and the first one I just wrote this morning. And it's really kind of silly, and there's a lot of bad words. So it's just, be careful. It's about it's about young girls discovering their sexuality. So Jessica Fudum's 13th birthday party. We watch Purple Rain, and somewhere in the middle of the movie, a few of us decide to draw smiley faces on our butts and whipped cream. This is truth or dare. The next dare, someone has to lick the cream off. That year we memorized Darling Nikki and recited it on the playground, jumping rope, singing, met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine. I had a literal mind, and I didn't think much about Playboy, so the image in my head was of Nikki, fully clothed, of course, holding a rolled-up magazine between her legs and rubbing it back and forth. But what would that do, I wondered. I was confused. Or was she using it like a dildo? Could that feel good? I thought about trying it. I thought about paper cuts. Prince came into our lives when we were learning what pleasure our fingers could give. In his world, girls wanted to fuck because they wanted to fuck, and masturbation was cool. Prince killed Prince Charming. There was no boy we had to be good for, pretty for, polite for. We flaunted our bodies in short shorts and our black rubber bracelets because we loved our bodies. We stripped naked and lay in the grass of the schoolyard at night because we could. Brooke Wilson and I read romance novels in a tent in my backyard and talked about what desire felt like. She said she felt like her whole body was a beating heart. I said I felt like I had to pee, like a lot. I think she became a romance novelist. At that birthday party, a boy named Walter, the first boy in our class who almost had a mustache, knocked on Jessica's window, and our friend Paula escaped with him. After they left, the rest of us talked about how they had already gone all the way. Jessica gave us the details, a couch in Walter's garage. The rest of us listened in a reverent silence. Prince in the background on his knees fucking his microphone stand. I licked the whipped cream from my lips. I stopped talking to Paula after that. She'd crossed over into the world of slut, a word invented by men and used by boys to show disdain for a woman who takes what she wants, fucks instead of being fucked. All those witches in the fairy tales we grew up on were living in the woods, fucking. To us, slut was a brave word, a beautiful word. I didn't stop talking to Paula because she was a sinner or a bad girl, but because she was a celebrity now. I conflated her with Sheila E., who she kind of looked like. I saw her on stage, bathed in light. She was older than me now. I was just a kid, and she was just cool. What could I say to her? No, we didn't listen to boys, we listened to Prince. We didn't want boys, we wanted Prince, who told us there was no use in shame, who told us that desire was ours, if our parents were crazy, if adults were assholes, if we were poor, dirty, queer, picked on. He said, you're beautiful, you're alive, touch yourself, fuck and dance, not a woman, not a man, the poet of the woman and the poet of the man. Come and touch the place in me that's calling out your name. Love root, baby, silk thread, soft and wet. All you'll ever need, urge and urge and urge. Let your body be free. So obviously that was for Prince. The second piece is coming out in the Bellingham Review, I think next month. And it's a story I wrote about writing a story. How meta can you be? I wrote a story about a boy who is dead. The boy's also alive. The boy's also going through puberty. My readers asked me to emphasize his smell. Does he smell dead or does he smell like armpits? They wanted to know. Is it death or adolescence? Or are you saying adolescence is death? Yes, I said. No, I said. Yes and no, I said. I had this dream about a boy who is dead and alive and going through puberty, and I thought all of these things could exist at the same time, can't they? They looked at me quizzically. There were certain things they felt they should know, certain possibilities I had left unexplored. His body, for example, can we see it, they asked. If you saw the body, I said, then you decide that he was really dead or obviously alive. You wouldn't accept it as both. They looked at me quizzically. Last year, my mother had a stem cell transplant. Her stem cell donor was male. She called me recently and told me, my blood is all man. Not only that, but her chromosomes are now all XY. Is my mother female? Yes. Is she male? Yes. She hasn't grown an Adam's apple or beefed up her bicep. She looks older since the transplant. Her hair grew back gray and her face is fat from the drugs. Because of the drugs, her personality changes rapidly. Some days she has the attention span of a 5-year-old. She walks through stores, touching everything, wanting to put brightly colored objects in her mouth. Another day she's old and tired and sits at the table slowly sipping chicken soup, smiling oddly at nothing in particular, her eyes half closed. There's not one thing I can hold on to from one day to the next, can point to and say, this is my mother. If tomorrow she grew to be 7 feet tall, if she began to speak in a deep, gravelly voice, if she grew a mustache and smoked cigars with my dad in the backyard, talking politics and baseball, I would still come visit, would sit with them on the deck, my mother spitting into the bathtub full of daffodils that my father had planted. It wouldn't be so surprising. Before the transplant, I gave a lot of my blood to a laboratory, hoping I would save my mother from leukemia. After several weeks, the doctors called my parents. It's one of the strangest things we've ever seen, they said. They were able to read my father's DNA through my blood. And looking at each parent, they found that my parents matched, not perfectly, but close. I wonder, is this a new development, or did their cells change over the years, wandering back and forth as they held each other at night, slowly forming matching patterns, a near mirror image? Are they still changing? One day will they match completely, their fingertips, their blood? How will we tell them apart? The dead boy in my story used to be more alive. He used to collect tadpoles in a pickle jar, trying to keep them until they became frogs. He used to open the jars and inhale the thick, pungent smell of algae and tadpole poo. He'd smear some on the tips of his fingers and chase his sisters around the house, and then one day he started to die, and he wondered if he'd been dying the whole time, and he just hadn't noticed. He had watched tadpoles begin to die. Patches of their skin wore off and they swam sideways, hitting the glass with their fleshy round heads. He buried them before they died. There was nothing wrong with being dead that way, the boy thought. Being dead when you're alive, you still get to watch the world around you. He watched a lot of TV when he was dead, his legs rotting beneath his favorite blanket. Eventually, he figured, you vanish and something else grows where you were sitting. Weeds that smell like tadpole slime, a flower made from your cells. In the story, the boy eventually vanishes in a river, and he's quite happy to go that way. He floats away in a current, And the narrator watches him vanish, and then looks at a duck flying awkwardly like a drunk over her head, and she realizes that there is nothing, that there has never been anything to hold on to.